Alrighty, welcome back to the Talk Past podcast. Of course, I am your host, per usual, NC, and we got again our co-host.
It's me. I am an enigma comprised of caffeine, aka Red Iron Riot, aka the War Queen.
Indeed, and I am often considered an enigma of cat fiend.
Cat.
Cat fiend. We'll find the words and then refine it to define a finer phrase later on in the episode. But similar to my talk with Zach, CK, and of course Dave from the previous episode.
And the Bruce.
Indeed. We're going to talk about festival stories, fair stories, medieval history, reenactment, and choreography stories with my co-host and myself. Things that we've done together as well as individually. And just in general, how that relates to medieval history, how we pull from medieval history, and just beyond that. So first and foremost, of course, the leading question to start all of this, how did you get into the festival that we do?
So it's like my answer to that is a little more complicated than it feels like. So you know that our fair originally for years, well, it wasn't our fair, but there was a fair in our town at the museum. Correct? You know the original. And the funny story, one of the funny things is I actually have a couple pictures from that floating around still, which is really fun to see because, God, I'm a small gremlin child. But at a point, and I think according to the the news article I found in 2001, it was the museum had several planned construction projects that it cut ties with the production company that did the original fair. And so the last fair from that production company was in 2001. And I can't remember if this, because I only think it was there for 1 year. They restarted it in 2005, and that was by the producer who now runs it. And God, can you believe that it's almost been 25 years since it restarted. Holy crap.
But when did you get into it?
Well, that's the thing. When it ran at this new location, which the first time they tried it, it was at the Polo Grounds. That is the first time I remember actually getting involved with the medieval fair. And that's the thing is I don't remember anybody, because I wasn't officially cast. I was just a volunteer. And I ended up, my volunteers, they're like, hey, you want to go help the knight, the jousting crew? I'm like, hell yes, I want to go help the jousting crew. And then I did that for the weekend or two, I think. I can't remember how many weekends it was, or it says it was just 2 days, October 15th and 16th, instead of our usual November times. So I think I don't think it was multiple weekends. But I remember doing that. I remember having a blast. And then nothing happened with the fair with me until, I believe, Cressy year, which I don't remember. What year was that?
That is a good question. So I started in 2010. Then we did the Peasant Revolt, I believe, in 2011. There was Irish Year, and I think Cressy was 2013, 2014. Memory fades as time goes by.
I actually just dug out my shirts the other day to because I'm packing stuff or moving stuff and packing stuff away, and I have the Cressy shirt, and I don't remember what year it was.
Well, you know what? I very long time ago went back and did a database of every single show since I joined, every single feature fight.
Nice.
Show as in festival, not the shows we host.
Right.
Every single feature fight on the board, not every fighter because you can't remember that. All of these can be found on YouTube. So there was in 2010 Return to Avalon. Very confusing, but we went into that with length with David because he and I did that as our first year. And then we did the Peasant Revolt, which was voted on by Cast in 2011.
All
And
right.
yeah, it was Peasant Revolt or doing Henry, the Whatevereth, or another ruling family. And then in Irish year was 2012, the Battle of Glen Mama. Again, had nothing to do with Glenn or his mama. And then Cressy was 2013.
Okay. So that was the year, that was the first year that is, the God, 2013, Christ almighty. That's the first year I remember doing it, the fair with the crew that is, the cast that's there now.
Yeah.
But
we're already coming up on 10 years of it too. 10 years since 2013, at least for you.
Yeah. Oh man. But no, my first really fair experience was with volunteering at the Polo Ground fair with the jousting crew, and it was not the heavy metal jousting guys. It's I can't remember his last name, but it's the guy Shane something.
I don't know. I don't particularly pay too much attention to the jousters.
Shane Adams.
No clue.
Who he's I think the guy who did Full Metal Jousting.
As opposed to Full Metal Alchemist or Full Metal Jacket. And of course, to round about our movie references that we just started doing, you said that when you were young, you were a little gremlin. I think we all had our Popeye phase, and then we just started eating and, became a gremlin. Speaking of gremlins...
If anything, I was a critter, not a gremlin.
I definitely was a gremlin. I definitely did not pay I paid little to no attention to the jousters, even when I was king. We had a little back and forth, but they do their thing, we do our thing, and I try to have as little contact with them as possible. Just kind of let them do their thing. So I don't know names. I don't remember names.
Right.
I know all of like one troop, which is the one that our director was familiar with.
Right. Well, so the Polo Grounds, the crew they had was Shane Adams, who is part of the Knights of Valor, who did heavy metal jousting. Did I just say that? And he's been doing the shows with us for a couple of years, like on and off for a couple of years, and I like him a lot more than the other crew that we end up having, because Shane always seemed kind of chill to me.
They kind of rotate. They kind of rotate every 2 years.
Yeah. And from what I understand, the other crew is kind of, my friend sister has talked about that they were a little weird. So Shane Adams, you can't go wrong.
He's cool dude. I think you have to be at some point. I mean, it's well, it depends on what kind of weird we're going here.
Not the good kind of weird. Not the good kind of weird.
Okay, well,
but dude was really like I have really fond memories. I still have the tabard I wore because. Just to volunteer, I just had to have a tabard, which I was able to throw one together for myself. And at the end of the weekend, I asked all the dudes to sign it for me, and I have it in a bag somewhere. So it's a nice little memento.
Since I'm not familiar, I'm sure I was there when they were there, but like I said, I don't pay attention to that. Did they do full contact?
Oh yeah,
theatrical.
It was full contact.
Okay.
And so the one thing I really regret is that I actually had some pictures because, as you know, volunteering as a squire for the Knights, they do the tilt games where they do the hoops and they do the they do the run and slice an apple in half. And one of those pictures, I'm the dingus with the freaking great helm on with the apple on top. I got beaten in the head at least twice. It was great.
And it happened. Yep. We never even thought about doing jousts as an episode, so let's delve that into a little bit here. We'll do a full one on medieval jousting, another point. But so because I actually have a couple questions since you were involved, and I oversaw when I was King Alfred.
Yeah,
I did every joust.
Yeah,
not involved, but you watch.
Yeah, you're the king. You gotta be there.
I imagine the troops we're talking about are completely different in our method. So the one you did, obviously they all do the games.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess is historically accurate? I'm not.
It is. It is.
No.
It was how it was how the knights would train for, the actual joust, is these games that, it's like holding the lance up and hitting that small target of the ring. I think the apple thing might just be a little more modern because it's just for show. Be like, hey, this fit this 5-pound broadsword, just whoosh. But a lot of the games do have a historical context because that's how you train.
Yeah.
Even in historical and I lost the words, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
training.
like I mentioned, I'm lost in the 800 to 1300s time frame. So the whole A Knight's Tale stuff is kind of over my head or tossed over my shoulder.
That was a
But
great movie, though.
so it was. We'll talk about that. We do briefly every now and then, but in that film, of course, he is trying to best a knight. Eventually, they come into full contact jousting. So you mentioned that Shane's troop is full contact,
Yep.
but for listeners, again, it's so similar in comparison, whether it's theatrical or full contact. A lot of the time, those battles are predetermined, and I find it's a lot more fake or pulled
Yeah.
with the jousting. Like we're choreographed.
Yeah.
They're not choreographed in terms of full contact. It's like just pretend to hit me kind of thing. Is that kind of how it was with his group? Did they have a
No.
thing where Shane had to win every time, or was it like, okay, this morning this knight's gonna win, in the afternoon that knight's gonna win. We're gonna make a story out of this.
I don't believe so. It was straight up full contact.
Just flat out doesn't matter who wins.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember which year it was that they were with us. But one year I remember their Green Knight just got absolutely kept getting his shit knocked in, and with three shows a day because it's 3 shows a day for the joust, right?
Yeah.
He like that poor guy ended up on the ground at least every show during the joust. And considering the hits and the armor, it still must have been sore as hell.
Being on the dais that we have for our show and watching some of these knights fall flat on their back on real armor on real horses.
Yep.
It looks. I mean, it doesn't look like it's a far fall. I would be freaked out because I don't like heights. I've ridden a horse all of once in my life, and I'd love to try again, but I was young, and heights isn't my thing.
No.
Just hearing it,
Yeah.
I imagine it. I don't know. If maybe it's better in the chainmail and the plate mail and the padded that you're wearing, as opposed to not wearing anything. But I imagine it's just rough.
I can agree. I could agree with that. But yeah, that's the thing too. At that point, which I believe was 2005, Shane was still jousting. I think currently he's just kind of the MC for the shows because I think he's probably gotten that past that point of just getting absolutely messed up every run.
Yeah, the one I kinged for was Kelly, I believe his name was. They were fine. They were just as any full contact, and they were just as about as any other joust group. That's the same style. I mean, you saw one joust, you saw them all.
Yeah.
Unless it's a difference between full contact and theatrical. But the only thing I didn't like about Kelly's group is they relied way too heavily on speakers, which is obviously not medieval, not historical, and way too many times, at least 2 jousts a day, the microphones just didn't work. I don't know why, but our microphones here on the dais worked perfectly. His rarely, and even then, because we're trained through improv to throw our voice to project, it's a lot easier for us to be heard by literally the entire joust field.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys, they don't project at all, and which is fine. I guess you don't. I don't know. I feel like you should. You
Yeah,
should.
because that was honestly a really fun time, and for a good while I wasn't able to do anything because my schedule was just so awful. And then finally, I got a chance to do fair again and do Crest of the Year.
Yeah.
And it was a good year,
Mhm.
I had fun. I had fun with it. So two of the stories that I can remember from Crest of the Year, and you're gonna laugh because they both involve my brother.
I can imagine.
So you recall that Crest of the Year, it's English versus the French.
Yep.
And part of the idea that we had for that was that the French side were going to have the Genoese crossbowmen, and the English side had archers. And so during rehearsals, they started, okay, well, this is what we want to do for the fight. We want to do, have the crossbowmen come up and get stomped by the archers. And I don't know if you remember that day of rehearsal, but they're like, okay, the director's like, okay, so I'm gonna have all the archers, you're gonna shoot at the crossbowmen, just pick whichever one you want to shoot at. And I think we had like 4 or 5 archer people with bows on the English side. Every single one shot for my brother, me included. It derailed the rehearsal for a couple minutes because everybody just lost their absolute minds laughing about it. Just watching.
Yeah, so I don't remember that. I can believe it. I don't remember that. One story I remember from rehearsal when we were at the park we don't want to be at.
Yeah, Cursed Park.
I remember we had that year 2 people that were first timers. One, they just never got it right. Now, I mean, what we do is very extensive. Sometimes you get it. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes people are just never going to get it, and it's okay. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to. But this mother and son, they just couldn't get it to save their lives.
Oh no,
Um,
that was I remember them. They were
yeah,
the mom was nice. The mom was nice. The son was
yeah,
kind of a dip, but the mom was nice.
yeah. That's who I'm referring to, the son. So I don't know whose brilliant idea it was to occupy his time by giving him a crossbow, but he actually no, he accidentally actually sent it flying to our co-director's head, and if that had hit, I don't know,
It wouldn't have been good.
it wouldn't have been good because that
Yeah.
thing was flying at full speed,
Yeah, no.
and uh, yeah. So I mean, even though so question about those because you used a bow.
Yes. I
Um,
broke 2
were
of them.
they? Did they have anything on the tips, at the edges? Was it just the wood dowel?
No, they were just wooden dowels that we fletched.
Okay, because I know someone tried to use like maybe like eraser tops or something like
We
that,
we
or
tried
a
to see if
stop.
it would work, but I don't think we could. I don't remember that we were able to get it to work properly. So we just went with the straight wooden dowels.
Cut that out. Sorry, it was
No
a big
worries.
swig of water. Um, yeah, I've never. I would love to get into that, but I've never done that. Um, that year was my first feature fight. That was with Tina, our
That was the chainmail fight, wasn't it?
Indeed, with our
Yep.
costume director. That was a great fight. It was my first fight, but that being on the receiving end of the volley, um, for me, it was because I have a kind of a miniature Viking shield, my round shield,
Yeah.
and um, eh, it's whatever. I didn't really. There was no real impact. I don't think anybody really aimed for me. So it was just kind of like a random beep boop, bop bop, pattering of wood on wood.
So
So
I
yeah,
remember because that was part of the melee is that you had the French side do the lock shields to protect against the arrows,
we would take
and
steps closer, you'd shoot, closer,
yeah,
you'd shoot.
Yeah, and so I remember that was pretty fun. I remember I did accident when I took a shot down at the line. Um, our costume director, the same person in question, wasn't holding their shield properly, and I accidentally hit her in the hand, like hit her on the hand, and apparently
It
it did.
happens.
Yeah, it happens, but it was just it's like, oh well, I didn't mean to actually shoot you. I was aiming for the shield.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, situation. I know you are gonna pull your bow
Yep.
properly because I think it was he gave a very specific number for you guys to pull in terms of a not a full half, kind of like how we do a speed thing for our
Yeah.
actual fights.
Yeah.
Um, so there's that, and I don't think. I mean, I think she was a little ticked at first, but then you understand, and
Also, there was a line of the audience right behind her. She'd be like, "At least it hit me and not the audience, right?"
yeah, yeah. It's like the discussion I had with Dave in regards to when you get hit or something goes awry, you miss a move or whatever. That kind of makes it real. Obviously, in this situation, fortunately, there was no tip in the arrow, so it
Yeah.
wasn't actually real. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I I didn't have any situation like that with arrows. Of course, I did as part of the medieval combat episode. We did an episode that got lost in transition when one of my computers died. I referenced the
Oof.
story when I talked to the Bruce, how dumb I was that I didn't pull out the part that has all the information on it
Oof.
to just put back in the new computer to pull that out. So that episode with him in it, which has the actual archery, is lost.
Tragic.
Actual archery in loose shooting someone who actually shot someone with an arrow at near full speed but no tip. That was that episode is saved though. We
Ooh.
shot TJ who played Brute both
Yep.
in festival as well as in the show, and I love TJ. He is amazing. If he ever catches wind of this podcast, probably never, but I love you, TJ, because he was always there when we were doing season 2 even when we couldn't film an episode.
No, TJ's
Um,
a sweetheart. He's a chill dude. My one regret about not being able to do fair anymore after after what's coming in the future is that we'll be able to do stuff with him because he's a nice dude.
um,
Oop, I
yeah,
lost
we
you.
shot him. We shot him with an arrow at near full speed, but he was
So
wearing multiple layers and stuff like that. I might
you'll be
put that
fine.
on here.
You'll be fine.
Um,
So
so go ahead.
I was gonna say, so that a lot of the stories about Cressy, the stuff I remember about Cressy, or revolve a lot with the archery stuff because that's what we did, and that's what I did, and that's what I enjoyed. My shoulders got huge that year just from all the practice. and the,
And chainmail and the armor.
well, that year I didn't do. I had a padded vest that year. I was really basic because it was my first year
Yeah,
doing fair.
you were wearing all white.
I had a white tunic, but I had a green padded vest, which actually I thought was very striking.
Yeah, I remember.
Borrowed from a friend.
See, when you start talking about it, things slowly flood in.
Oh God, I was gonna bring that up because I remember that
Oh.
very clearly. That was one of my big, that was my first melee fight, and I had, instead of putting the spear butt where just by his leg, I put it down too far, right behind his ankle, and that was, man, talk about being, just kind of scared.
Yeah,
But
he was our co-director at the time. So again, it happens. And
yeah,
obviously, all made up at the end.
yeah,
But it's a moment that kind of reminded me of falling off a horse in the same armor.
yeah. I think
Um,
it was pretty
just
rough.
he was
And
wearing a very sort of fantasy-like full plate armor that eventually the Bruce, or quote unquote the Bruce, got, and unfortunately never got to wear. But so
tragic.
I mean, he could have, as with anything we do, you do it wrong, there can be injury. Fortunately,
Mhm.
no one's ever had injury where you lose limbs or anything like that.
Yeah,
Like how I stabbed myself with my Viking dagger, the sax, and
right,
it didn't. I mean, it didn't impale me. I was just being stupid. But
right.
it caused a hole in my suede armor that slowly, tears open. I've replaced it, but I'll probably never wear that for show again because it's not historical. But moving on, of course, we had Cressy year. That was when you started.
Hmm.
Did you do the following year, which was Magyar in
Yeah,
2014?
yes, I did. I was there for Magyar year, and Magyar year was a fun year. So that was when I actually got the sword that I actually still use. It's I haven't honestly haven't needed to get a new one. I was thinking I was going to get something for the Joan of Arc gear, but then I ended up not doing the Joan of Arc gear, so I didn't get the sword. But oh man, I love that sword. Yeah.
Did you? This is the thing I'm trying to do with each of these episodes. So you bring that up. So before I forget, did you name the sword? Did you name any of your weapons?
I have not named my sword. I have not. A name has not presented itself to where I am like, yeah, this feels right, and it's one of those things that you really the opportunity I think needs to present itself.
Same here.
For a good name.
I know some of us name our weapons. I have not. But yeah, it's something I always want to ask. And then continue. You were telling a story.
Yeah. Well, just because so the sword I got, and I'm trying to find the it's a Hanwei, I recall. I'm trying to find the actual sword because where I have been getting most of my gear from for fair has been from Cult of Athena. Kult, Cult of Athena.
Yep, I love that place. That's where I'm getting a lot of my
Yeah,
blacksmithing stuff.
Yeah, so I don't think it's on. They have the same model of sword anymore, but it's a Hanwei Viking sword. And the fun thing is that the Viking swords are the style of sword. Their pommel is very. They don't really they have the hilt is very short. It doesn't have this extended European hilts that you start seeing I say 11th, 12th, 13th century, I guess. Very ornate. It's a very basic grip and pommel and hilt words. Yeah. And honestly, I love that. I love the sword to bits, and I just wish I had more chance to use it. And like I said, I haven't named it, but it kind of deserves a name since it's been through so much. But it's again, like I said, it's one of those things that it reveals itself in time.
Exactly. Is there any story in that year? I've got a couple, but they kind of blend into one another. Mainly just what I went over with the Bruce when he hit me with the drinking horn. And then just my fight, which I fought a friend of ours who now does Viking encampment, and he is an absolute brilliant mind. And I really like those brutal fights in measure, and I don't mind being thrown around. But in regards to any real stories, I don't really have any that year. But do you?
I do actually. So this is period of time where I was still on good terms, good speaking. I still had a good relationship with my brother. So because I did not have a feature fight, and they the directors encouraged us to, do something to find something to do, right?
Yeah.
What I ended up doing is my brother and I ended up choreographing a knife fight for the chessboard, and just for something to do between chess matches and shows and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we did it, and we pulled it off, and we did it most days. And there's actually somebody was kind enough to take a video of it, and there's a video of it on YouTube. And it was I'm pretty proud because I actually had a really fun time with it. And it's one of those things watching this video and what all we did, because we did a really good, a really fun headbutt bit. And I remember one day because we had organized it with some of the other cast members, be like, hey, listen, once the fight's over, we need, I need you to come give me the play-o, get up, come on, get going. And nobody did that for me one day. So I'm pretty sure I was on the ground on the chessboard for at least 15 minutes waiting for another cast member to come pick me up because I was supposed to be knocked out. And I think somebody finally did when they were coming to start, get ready to start the match. And it's just like, what are you doing? I'm like, somebody was supposed to get me up. What the fuck?
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Moving forward though,
But
were you were there for Bannockburn, the
oh
Scottish
yeah,
year in
oh
2015?
yes, oh yeah. So I know I did Cressy. I know I did Magyar year. Wasn't there another show between those years?
Nope.
No, it was Bannockburn after that. So yeah, Bannockburn. Bannockburn. I was waiting to do a Scottish year. So like, just so much I was waiting to do a Scottish year. Because I think I might have mentioned it before. If not, my family heritage is very Scottish. And so I was excited to do something to kind of represent that.
Hmm.
And it didn't really come up, but I even talked to the clan historian for the family clan in Scotland about the battle and if the clan had any prominent role in it. And not really. Actually, let me pull up the email again, because it was just like it's like one of those things, like I want to do more for fair stuff, is like you get the historically involved
Yeah.
with things. Where is it? It's in here. No, that's not this one. I think it's in my other one. But because a lot of doing fair stuff, yeah, it's all fun and games, but it's just I think it's fun to be able to do to be involved with the history of it.
Yeah. Eventually, I got into that mood, but so yeah, I played John Comyn that year, and so I was the only Scot on the English side for King Edward II.
Originally, officially. I do remember that when I was the first match, I was on the English side just because we didn't have enough English on the English.
A couple of people.
Yeah. Where is this? And that would have been, God, years ago.
Which, of course, is the same after Bannockburn is the time frame that we did for the Medieval Combat series. Because we used King Edward II, both actor from that year, and then the scenario. Of course, we're not going to do that again, but that was interesting. I didn't say not all of us played the same character. I think only King Edward and the Bruce were the same people.
Right.
But it was an interesting time frame to delve into. That was the first time I started getting into the history of it, because you kind of had to.
Yeah.
You're like the only legit Scot on the English side. That would be like being the only Viking on in King Alfred's army. It's like, why are you here? But I don't know. That it just I had to do that in order to pull strings to just find something relevant for that year for me, because I didn't get a fight that year, which is not necessary. So that allowed me to drop back, spend that time on character development instead. And then that's when I started getting into the historical aspect. So trying to develop this character, giving him that sort of Robert Carlyle voice, and then going from there and sort of putting myself out there for entertainment's sake more than I did previously.
So I found the mail. So this was from the clan historian for Clan Colquhoun, which is my family clan. And so he basically, at the time of the Bannockburn, the chief of Clan Colquhoun was Sir Humphrey. And there's the Colquhoun clan, and then they married into the barony of Luss, which are now the family lands in Scotland, the clan lands in Scotland. Luss, the Luss family were supporters of the Bruce, but did not take up arms. They did provide material support for the army, however, specifically 2 cheeses from every house which made cheese, which is, I think, is like one of those neat little like, oh well, it's cool that we know that. But apparently, just because of, lands between Scotland and England, swearing fealty to Edward, between Edward and Bruce, apparently there was a lot of confusion when it came to Scots fighting for that. But it was just, it's being able to reach out and talk to ask somebody a question about that. And I also, I don't know if you recall, but I did have a metal shield with the
Yes.
the with the heraldry on it, which is just a very basic design because that's all it was. And that was the heraldry of Clan Colquhoun at that time, because at that point they weren't badges with the more modern badges that people use nowadays. It was regular heraldry. And I also learned that there's a clan battle cry, which is Knock Locken. A corruption, which is believed to be a corruption of the Gaelic Knock and Slack. I don't know how to pronounce that right, but it is basically the Hill of the Willows, which refers to a hillock near the entrance to Glen Finlass in the parish of Luss. So it's a neat little bit of history that I was happy to be able to bring to the fairgrounds, even if probably nobody else appreciated it but me.
Which is usually how it happens.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
it's cast or the people out in the lanes. Usually stuff like that I learned when you try to do those little nooks and crannies of knowledge and development, it just gets lost. I mean, we as a group might appreciate it on some individuals, but when you just press it on the masses, sometimes it just gets lost.
Yeah.
Not all of us can whip our axes back and the axe actually fall off.
Right.
Like it did Bannock.
Yeah. It's just, it's a cool thing to happen. But yeah, that, and I don't recall, I don't know if you recall this, but at the very last day of the fair, there is a saying from, God, who was it? There was, it was an Scottish author. Let me see give me a moment to see if I can find it. Because it's when a lot of medieval fairs, Renaissance fairs, you'll always have at least one vendor who is like, find your family heraldry, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And I get people like that, and it's neat it's a neat thing for people to do, but for me especially, it was something that was very, this is being a Caucasian American. It doesn't feel like I have very much culture and a very much of a, of beyond the blanket American culture that everybody kind of deals with. And it feels, I've always ended up feeling it feels very isolating a little bit just to not have something like that. So getting involved with my family clans, with stuff with the family clan and the history of it, it's like, for me, it's an important thing because it's like, well, here's a little bit of something that is, I can say, is mine,
Right. I feel that I don't really subscribe to any main family heraldry or culture. I create my own culture, like a yogurt mixed in with the cosmos and then cultured. But moving on from Bannockburn, so I've asked each person, how many weapons do you have and what are your weapons?
Okay, well, so I currently have at least 4 plus 2 functional shields. I have my Viking sword. I have a boar spear, which I ended up using Magyar year, I believe. Great piece of equipment, a spear. You can use it for almost any time frame, honestly.
Yeah.
And they're actually very, not just being very versatile. They look really cool. And the one thing I'm disappointed in is that it used to be a lot longer than it currently is. And because I let my brother borrow it for the Richard the Lionheart year, and he chopped off like a foot of it. And it's like, why did you do that?
You should have made him pay for that.
Like getting blood from a stone. But
which there are some stones that bleed. That's a little Animal Kingdom reference. But in any case, go ahead.
I also have a 6, which I think a sax. I believe I got that for the Magyar year as well. I'm trying to think. Did I really liked it. It's a very, very lovely little sax. That I also got from Cult of Athena. Like it looks real nice. It handles real good. It's not like most of my weapons. It's not sharp because it doesn't need to be sharp. Yeah, no. I would have gotten it for Magyar year because I was on the German side, and that would have been a good piece of equipment for a German soldier to have. Well, German right. At that time, soldier to have. I think at that point, they weren't specifically German. I can't remember. And then I have a small bearded axe, a one-handed axe that I used for Viking year, where that was the year that you were king,
right?
Which I do not remember which year that was. Off the call.
That was 2018.
That was 2018. That was the Battle of.
Good luck. So that year we did. See, that's another thing with looking up the history, and then it just kind of gets muddled. Because I'll be honest, my research pretty much was exclusive to King Alfred, literally just Alfred. Yeah, because I mean, I wasn't really given a battle. I think maybe, and then it just kind of got thrown into the wind. So I'm just like, all right, yeah, no, I'm just gonna research Alfred, and I will play Alfred in whatever scenario we're doing on the board, however we're dealing with this. So I'm sure I knew, and we did do a scenario. I just right now off the top of my head forget, but that was when we did King Alfred versus Guthrum.
Mm-hmm.
And the battle. See again, I'm not even gonna try and figure that out. So that was actually around the time I believe when we were quote unquote as to history doing this. See, I don't know. It just got so muddled. So I'm not even gonna go there. I don't know the scenario. I don't know the battlefield or whatever we were doing. I played Alfred, Zach, CH played Guthrum, and then we did our characters and we did it. And whatever the directors had in mind, that's what they had in mind. But we just did our thing.
All right, one second. Just to touch back on the Bannockburn year, I found that quote, and for me it was very touching to use because I thought, it's as I said, it was a year for me that was very important. If not anyone else felt the same way, because my brother, of course, was the Black Crackers. I cannot remember his character. The mark of a Scot of all classes is that he remembers and cherishes the memory of his forebears, good or bad, and there burns alive in him a sense of identity with the dead, even to the 20th generation. And it sounds a little cheesy, but it was really important during that scenario.
You notice also the festival's kind of a meta moment here. We used to, with exception of Return to Avalon, which was kind of a meme here, kind of a meme here. But each show was named after the battle, right? Mm-hmm. The Battle of Glen Mama, Battle of Bannockburn. That's why I'm having a hard time thinking about the Viking year. and the Scottish year because that's what we called it. So it's
Well,
like, oh yeah, the Battle of Murmurford report. I'm like, okay, what?
well, so I do recall that the Magyar year was technically the Battle of Lechfeld.
Yes.
The
Cressy.
Cressy, yeah. Eddington was Viking year. It's the Battle of Eddington.
Right.
I know I missed the Richard the Lionheart year because I remember being part of the crowd and watching, watching. But he had his peasant. He had his peasant nickname that he used. Apparently, he used in Peasant Revolt and it just kind of stuck.
Dirt or filth. It was filth.
It was Filth.
Yeah.
It was so because he was in the Lionheart year. He was the crosswoman that shot Richard the Lionheart and ended up getting flayed. And I remember at the end of the day, they had him and the guy with the whip, who I don't know very well, at the gates, and they, he was cracking the whip, and Filth was screaming and hollering, and they had bits of something. I think it might have been turkey. Ooh, excuse me. I think it might have been turkey. Just kind of flying back, flying around, just to make it look like they were, flying chunks off of him.
Kind of funny how that was okay, but saying "Hail Satan" isn't.
Oh,
There's a little meta for you if you want to listen to this podcast.
a little much, yeah.
But yeah, no, that was an amazing, kind of hilarious moment, but also a good show for both us and the crowd that would come by, and they would see it, and yeah, it was like little, and I believe it was just little like pieces of lunch meat, turkey. So then, of course, we did do Viking Year, Battle of Eddington, Alfred versus Guthrum. However, did you do anything outside of this particular festival?
I didn't have the time to do anything of like. I I occasionally do some cosplay for the local conventions, but I find personally that I don't have very much time to devote to doing stuff like this,
Right.
which I'm not too torn up about. I do not find myself as a strong performer, and it's not like I'm getting any better. Which is honestly, there's a lot of great people in our cast, and I always wish I had the focus to practice and get to that level, but I do not, and it's very disheartening.
Yeah. It takes time for some people, and some people,
Yeah.
it really
Like,
don't matter. Sometimes the strong point is acting or fighting or this or that. It's not any better or worse than anyone. It's just what is your strong point, right? So same thing though. I don't aside from that medieval combat and this channel that we're going to be working on more structurally, which of course you're involved in. I don't really do any other show. I've just same reason, just don't have time. It's not that I don't want to. It's just that it's both time and money and just energy. There's only so much time in the day. There's a lot of other projects that I work on for myself.
yeah.
But if I do that, doing the festival itself, it's like you're at work 7 days a week for 3 months.
It's
It's
very, yeah, it's a hell of a commitment, but I always really enjoyed doing it. In the years that I couldn't do it, I always kind of ended up kicking myself for not doing it because oh, it's fun and everybody's oh, look at all the cast having fun and I'm not part of it this year. Crud. And
to be honest, I did not miss it last year. But that's only because obviously we were doing dealing with the
last year was rough.
situation.
Last year was rough.
And I feel like it's 9 years in a row I did the 9 shows for the festival plus 2 shows for Universal with the same group.
Woo.
And sometimes you do need a break, whether it's
Yeah.
a year off or 2. Obviously, I'm not doing this year due to circumstances. I do plan on next year But because I mean, I'm loyal to the group and I love them all. They're all my family, and I miss it now. But it's just circumstance. I cannot be there physically.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm probably going to
it was nice. It was nice to have the year off or 2 years
yeah.
off.
I know I'm at least going to try to go to the auditions just to be there and see people and say hi. But I'm not going to be able to do fair this year. And I'm really disappointed about it because it's going to be a big year because we've got our own grounds and everything. But
Right.
also, I'm a little concerned about. I know the directors are the co-director is now officially the director, and I don't ever feel that I've ever made a good impression with him. And I don't know. What if, as much as I enjoy the fair and as much as I dislike the anxiety I get the years I perform, because boy, let me tell you, it is there, and I do not like it. um, one of the things, and I guess you could put this in there. I don't mind. I'm always kind of disappointed in that the idea of, well, here's what we're gonna do historically, and then, well, it's a Scott year, so everybody's got to have kilts.
Yeah.
And I acquiesced with that. I had my family tartan. I wore it as a great kilt instead of a walking kilt because that's as far as I was willing to compromise with that. But this is a problem. It feels like with not just our fair, but with other fairs, it is that you have to let a little bit of anachronism slide. You have to. Just a little tiny bit.
And that's one of the things I noticed about our show, and one of the sort of complaints that I have about it overall is, and I am completely to blame as well, because remember, I had a suede tabard, I had the dragon mask,
Yeah.
so I am completely to blame. However, I noticed our show is not a medieval festival; it is a Renaissance modern festival. It is a state fair. You go and you buy your strawberries, and you look at some goof who's singing a modern song on a stage, and
Oof.
you're relying entirely on our board doing historical accuracy, and yet
You expect the cast to carry that.
gripe,
Yeah.
which is more of just nitpicking, not actual like
Yeah.
it's just nitpicky stuff that kind of chips away at us, and how we're able to do the sort of historical accuracy. And then things like this happen, which you you can forgive it in certain scenarios. I get it. I allowed them to do the tartans when we did the medieval combat thing because that's what they had at the time. I said, don't spend any money on gear. Just use what you already have.
Right.
And because our show on the channel previously was just a no budget show, I put
Right.
all of my money into it, and so I get that, and I am completely to blame. But it's just kind of weird. I wish we were. I wish we would go all the way historical.
Well, you say that, and then my counter argument is that this might sound a little personal. You know how I look. I am gender nonconforming as hell. A little bit queer on the side. I'm not comfortable in dresses. I'm not comfortable being female presenting, and in fair instances, considering how women are usually treated at fairs, and because I'm not that pretty, I feel like. And it's
You're not the only one in terms of both presenting,
yeah.
because obviously we have several people on cast of both of whom are transgender, both of whom just don't present as their gender because they're non-conforming, and others who just who like to flip. You know what? I wish, and I even asked. Sorry, I even asked one year if I could play a female character. I know I am.
Oh wow.
I can be androgynous. I could definitely do that. I did that for one of the couple of the parties. I could pull that off. I would be an ugly woman, unless you like femboys. But for me, it would be on the perspective of perception. I
Right.
would love to experience doing the show from that perspective. But I mean, we have a variety of different people of all walks
Right.
in life and identities. So it's no issue with that. I would have no issue in terms of a full, hard historical aspect, but you still have people like yourself
Hmm.
who are uh, appearing as you prefer to appear. I would never, when we do videos on the channel, the live action things, be like, no, you need to wear a dress because that's what women would do. No, I would be, what character do you want to play? You play that character.
Yeah. So and that's part of my problem is that I just want to be when I do the fair. I just want to be I just want to be a knight. I just want to be a soldier. That's the kind of fun I want to have. You know,
Right.
and I won't lie. During Eddington, during the Eddington year, during rehearsals, and they finally split up the sides. I was almost on the English side, and I was honestly devastated because Viking women had a lot more freedom. To they were there and they fought, right? They could
Yeah.
fight. And I almost didn't get that because they put me on the English side first. And it honestly, I almost walked out until our improv director at the time. I went to her and I talked to her, and she encouraged me and gave me the confidence to try and talk to the directors to be like, hey, can I please be on the Viking side, because I don't want to, I want to. I'm okay with being a chick this year and as a character, but I don't want to do that on the English side because you guys are going to expect me in a dress, and I don't do that at all.
See,
I'm not
see,
comfortable with that.
that year got ugly during rehearsals. That was such a drama-filled rehearsal year. There's a lot of people that got very upset. There's a lot of people that almost walked out.
Oof.
Um, just because of the whole, I don't know why. Same thing with like English versus Scottish. There is something. It's about a scenario, a year where you're like, this is the group that everyone's just gonna want to be. And
Hmm.
sometimes, for your situation is completely legit. You conform so much better to the Viking uh, group than you would have English. I would have done either side and been fine.
Hmm.
Um, Scottish here, I wanted to be Scottish, but I would have been fine as English. For some reason, I was Scottish on the English side.
Well,
Um,
that's because there were Scots who had sworn fealty to Edward. So,
yeah, and then of course the Bruce killed my family and my claim to the throne.
rip.
But the director came up to me, and I'm pretty sure I was not the first choice for Alfred. The previous year, we were thinking about doing Vlad the Impaler. I wrote,
I remember that there was a lot of people wanted to do it, but the producer was like, "No, we really can't do heads on spikes."
I just felt as though I was always typecast, both as a person, as a personality, as an identity, and as an actor in the show, being typecast, and people look down on me. People don't think that I can play a certain role. People think I can't do a certain thing. I know there's a couple of people, I can name at least two, and I'm not going to put that on the podcast, who did their best to make being Alfred as horrible an experience for me as possible. And I know railed on me when I tried to work
Yeah.
my absolute hardest to show that I could be Vlad the Impaler, the only medieval historical person I've ever had any interest in learning about, up until, of course, having to learn about Alfred and Guthrum, and then being fascinated more so about the Vikings, but also the Saxons at the time. Um, I really worked my butt off, and I asked them, I begged them, just consider me. I didn't think they would do it. Just consider me.
Hmm.
And then the next year, of course, we weren't able to do it
Right.
um, for whatever reason. But
For reasons, not just whatever reason.
they
For
they came
reasons.
up to me and they're like, "Are you ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, sure." But there were people who pretty much walking out because they didn't get cast Viking. There are some people who are going to walk out because they weren't cast English.
Wow.
And then there were people that wanted to walk out because they weren't given a feature fight. You know what? One of the first things they were talking to me about was not fighting Guthrum as the King fight,
What?
which I was okay with. I will do whatever you want me to do because it doesn't matter. I'm already playing the king for you. We've got that situation there. I'm having the absolute joy, and I loved the perspective of playing king, both in the lanes at the joust, but mostly on the chessboard. I loved not having to kneel. Well, but my favorite thing was being able to personally interact with everybody,
Right.
personally interact with all of you on your side of the Vikings. I loved it. I love those little moments of improv, and I hope they get to play a king again, specifically for those moments. And I also loved the little bits on my side. I specifically targeted people that don't normally get to speak up on the board, and they would come up to me later during the end of the show and be like, no one's ever let me do that before. No one's ever pulled me to see the joust. No one's ever let me speak up on the board. Thank you for
Yeah.
doing that, because I've never been able to do that. So I love doing that. And that's that sort of moment where you're given an opportunity, you got to ask for it, and sometimes they say yes.
Hmm.
And I will never limit anybody when we get into the live action shows. I think everyone should have a chance to do what they want to do.
Yeah. See, it's just that for me, for fair stuff, and this is part of where my anxiety from doing the fair comes from, is that I don't feel like I ever will have any sort of roles like that just because of the way I am and the way I look, and it's honestly a little heartbreaking sometimes to think about it. Like, honestly, I was hoping that if I had, if I could push myself and they ever did a Joan of Arc year, that maybe I'd have a big role for once. And not to rag, our Joan, the Joan they had for Joan of Arc year did a fantastic job and it's great. But I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was like, there's not a lot of, women, historical women who have made these big splashes in history that, I could portray. And there's
Just down. Right.
yeah, and it was a bit of a letdown, and even, I actually approached the director, and there is a pretty sure it's anachronistic, but it's still a great story from Rejected Princesses who covered it. Marguerite de Bressieux, who was it's a story from the Hundred Years' War, and she was a woman who basically took up arms to hunt down her rapists.
Yeah.
And it's,
And
like I said, it's
then she would have a margarita after. Because you
hey,
know what? When you're doing that, you deserve it.
and it's anachronistic, but it's also like I had seen it as a chance to be like, hey, director, for this is the Joan of Arc. This is a year where people are gonna, they're gonna expect people in armor, and here's a chance for some of the female fighters to wear armor and have an excuse for it with that, because again, the director doesn't feel like he ever gave people the excuse to, well, you're female, so this is the character you're playing. This is the character we expect you to play, kind of thing. And then I didn't end up doing, the Joan of Arc year for other reasons, but that was honestly a little part of it. Is just like, if I did Joan of Arc year, I wanted to wear armor. I wanted to be kitted out because that's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's not, it doesn't feel like it's a chance I'm ever going to get unless I do stuff like SCA and HEMA and whatnot.
And of course, the show here on the channel.
Yeah, and the show here on the channel, which I will really appreciate if we get the chance to do. But it's something that really always bothers me when it comes to doing fair, is that, and even when we're doing rehearsals, once the sides are picked out and the feature fights are picked out, unless you're a feature fighter, you're basically kind of left to your own until the melee practice. And I know there's a whole thing to be said for, practicing on your own time, but it's not the same.
stood.
Ugh.
I mean, I took to the practice on your own time sort of thing. I mean, 4 years I didn't get a fight, and then Bannockburn I didn't, so I was just in between time, just working on stuff.
And it's
Also, I
always
didn't do because I really want to, but I never did the tournament fights yet. Dave and I was going to do a spear versus spear fight when I was the preacher,
Mhm.
but and we had a good fight. It was very much a right. We're
Right.
just playing with our spears and having fun, and there's no story to it. But it was just killing me, so we just
Mhm.
couldn't do it, and we just quietly dropped
Jeez.
it.
As a side
Um,
note, I apologize for getting a little morose, but it's on it's
yeah,
it feels like an issue that I've never been able to bring up to, the people at the top because it'll just get, because it's me, it'll just get brushed off. And it didn't help that, especially Viking year, that's when my relationship with my brother really went south.
I've been in that boat where I feel like because of who I am or how people perceive me, that I would be cast aside and ignored or something of that nature and whatnot. But it just depends on the crowd. But yeah. So let's go ahead and narrow things down then. Um, so of course, those were some of our stories, good, bad, and ugly,
Yep.
regarding our experience at the festival outside, what we want to do for the future, what
Hmm.
we did in terms of medieval history. And that is it for this particular episode of the Talk Past podcast. Of course, we're thinking about doing more episodes in regards to similar situations like women of medieval history.
Yep.
And I am NC and my
I
co-host.
am I am Red Iron Riot, and I'm sorry for being a little bit of a bummer. It's just, some of my experiences haven't been super good with fair, and
Needs to be addressed. Not everybody has the best experience. Not everybody has um, a good experience. Not everyone has a great time every time, and not everyone has a bad one. So
yeah.
all of these little things that we go through, the good, the bad, the ugly, is what
Hmm.
comprises of our experiences. It's how we grow. It's how we become who we are, and can look back and either be better for it, be bitter for it, or just be different. Or some people are just the same. Some people don't change.
Yeah.
But
All right.
either way, that's our experience. So
Join us
on
next
you go.
time for more medieval pots for words.
Rabble
Words. I
dabble.
was gonna
About
try to say something, but
something about words coming out from you.
I was gonna try and close on something pleasant and cheerful, but my brain kinda crashed, so I apologize for
I
that.
like potatoes, even though they're not historically
I
accurate.
like potatoes.
And we'll see you next time.
You.
Rabble dabble.